Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So today I have a exciting drugstore review for you guys. I'm going to be reviewing the brand new Makeup Revolution Conceal and Hydrate Radiance Foundation with hyaluronic acid. And also the matching corresponding concealer. So both of these are Radiant products, concealer and foundation. Both are infused with hyaluronic acid. Both are medium to full coverage. If you're new to my channel, you won't know this, but I don't do a huge amount of drugstore and affordable products on my channel. And I recently did a video explaining my reasons why. Just the short version is that I am a huge high-end obsessed makeup addict. But I generally pick the drugstore affordable products to review on my channel that I am genuinely excited for. I don't like to do drugstore for the sake of doing drugstore. I only like to do products on here, high-end drugstore, affordable, luxury, if I'm genuinely excited and interested to try them. And this is the first drugstore launch that I have been genuinely very excited for a while. So this is for you if you are looking for a medium to full coverage, a hydrating, a glowy luminous foundation at a drugstore affordable price. I love Makeup Revolution as a brand. I think they're a phenomenal affordable brand for a few reasons. Number one, they are actually extremely affordable. I feel like drugstore and affordable brands have a range of prices, and you see brands like L'Oreal, Max Factor, Maybelline's prices, a lot of their products are not the cheapest anymore. You know, you can see a mascara, L'Oreal mascara can be £15 now. Not that affordable. Makeup Revolution's products are always extremely affordable. I mean, the foundation is £9. These are really, really good prices. And actually at that price point, I don't know how they can be beaten. The second reason is they fully listen to feedback from their customers, from the consumer. They were, when they released their Conceal and Define concealer, I think last year, maybe the year before, time flies, people were feeding back that it was too small, they wanted more product, more bang for their buck. They came out with a bigger size. Their previous foundation in this same packaging had a doe foot. People fed back that they didn't like it. They brought out a pump. That is how to run a business. The third reason, the shade range of this brand. 50 shades in their foundation and their concealer, and not just the shades, skin true, skin-like undertone. They've got neutrals, they've got warm tones, they've got pink tones, they've got olive tones. Excuse me, olive undertones for drugstore affordable brand is almost unheard of. 50 shades in a drugstore affordable brand, pretty much unheard of. Name me another brand that has that many shades that's an affordable brand. There probably is one, but you get the point. I feel like they are a phenomenal brand. They're always pushing the high end, keeping up with the Joneses. All of these high end brands been coming out with hydrating, full coverage, glowing foundations recently, and here they are not being left behind. I wanted to try this one out for any of you guys who are on a budget, who are looking for a lower priced alternative to the ABH foundation, to the Fenty foundation, to the Mercier foundation. If you love the Rodial that I always rave about, but it hasn't got a shade for you, we are hoping this is going to be the solution to our lower priced prayers. I'll put all the information on the screen about both the foundation and the concealer for you. I picked up the shade 9.5 in the foundation, and I picked up the shade 8 in the concealer. So this is supposed to be a medium with olive undertones, and this is supposed to be a medium with neutral undertones. So I figured these would be a good combination. So without further ado, let's whack it on my face and see if it's the answer to all of our prayers. Okay, so I'm going to start off like always with my Tatcha Silk Canvas. This is the primer that I use pretty much every day, so I know anything that happens that is different or new or negative is not my primer, because this is the one that I use with all my foundations very successfully. So it just gives me a good base. So here's some shade comparisons for you. First up, this is the Makeup Revolution in 9.5. Next up, we have NARS's Aruba, and that is the luminous longwear, whatever it's called. Next up, we have Laura Mercier's Tawny, and that is the Flawless Lumiere foundation. So this is like my winter shade. This is more my summer shade in the Aruba NARS. And then at the end we have Huda's Baklava. So you can definitely see these are all a bit darker, and you've really got that olive undertone coming through in the Makeup Revolution, which is really unusual to see in a drugstore foundation, to see such good olive tones. I think that's amazing. And then you've got the concealers. So this is my Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Light Medium, and this is the shade 8 from Makeup Revolution. So that has a neutral undertone, but it definitely looks pinker in comparison to the Tarte Shape Tape, but they are a similar shade. Okay, so as I haven't used this foundation before, I'm going to do my usual, going half a face with my Sigma F80 and half a face with my Beauty Blender, so that we can see which method the foundation likes the best. So as I said, it has a pump now, which I think is fantastic. I don't know how much we're going to need, but I'm going to use 2 pumps to begin with, and we'll see. It is a runny, liquidy foundation. Has a faint kind of lotion type scent. So let's start off with a little dab in there, and I'm going to go on this side of the face. Obviously I'm matching to my body and not my face, which I have done pretty well keeping it out of the sun this summer. Okay, so with that first pass, just one little dab, it's blended really nicely and quickly. You can see against my neck and my body, a really nice, really good shade. It's definitely got a fantastic olive undertone, which is, I just don't know any other drugstore affordable brand that does really true olive undertones. So that is already a fantastic tick in my box. Looking luminous, really nice and luminous, but it doesn't, given that I've just applied this, it doesn't look wet and dewy, because you would expect it to dry down a little less glowy. So I'm liking that, because I don't think it's too extreme. And I've definitely got like a solid medium with like the first initial cover. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my sponge on this side. So I'm going to put some product on and then blend with the sponge, because that sort of minimises the sponge picking all of the product up. Again, taking it, just blending it a little down my neck. My neck actually has picked up a bit of colour for once in its life. So there is a hair less coverage. I'd say this is like a light to medium, and the brush side was like a solid medium. You can see this pigmentation shows through more on the sponge side. So I'm just going to build up to see if we can cover that. You know, neither side, like you definitely can use either method with this foundation, because both sides have gone on really nicely, which I think is the main thing. Everyone has a preference whether they prefer a brush or a sponge generally, so this is really nice that it will apply well with either. I didn't have issues with brush strokes on the brush side. I didn't lose a huge amount of coverage with the sponge. You can definitely get to a medium with the sponge, so I think that's a real plus for it, that you can just use whichever method you most would normally prefer. Okay, so this is like one pretty light layer. 2 pumps to do my whole face is pretty good, like you're not going in with 100 pumps, and it's giving a nice like solid medium, I would say, like a true medium coverage. It's not fully covered my hyperpigmentation, my melasma on my forehead. It's more so covered it on the brush side, but it's covered redness, it's covered discoloration, it's like evened everything up really nicely. If I zoom out slightly, you can see it's a good match, a little lighter than my body, but a nice kind of balance. I can always bronze up, rather than if I match my body, it's just all a bit too dark. So yeah, it's got a really nice glow to it, but it's not looking wet, shiny, glowy, like oil slick like some foundations do. I'm gonna do a little half of a pump. Again, this is a great pump because it actually allows you to do like half pumps and little smidges, as opposed to having to get a whole pump back out. So I'm just gonna build this side up to match and just see whether we can get closer to a full coverage, because it does claim to be medium buildable to full. I don't know that I would say it's a full, maybe like it's like a medium to full now. It's pretty much covering most things, but yeah, it's not like a crazy mask full coverage, but it is definitely like a solid medium to full, I would say. So let's move on to the concealer. So as I said, this is shade C8, a neutral shade, which I often enjoy for concealers because being olive undertoned, I can't always find olive toned foundations, so I quite often have to use either a warm tone or a neutral toned foundation depending on what is the best match for me in each example. So a kind of choosing a neutral concealer just means that the shade is not going to get thrown off by whatever foundation undertone I've had to pick, basically. So this is a really good brightening shade against that 9.5 of the foundation. I think these two are a good pair, a bit of brightening but not too crazy. And actually on the skin it doesn't look as pink as it looked in the swatch. I think this is a nice shade for me. It's blending in very effortlessly. This is like good coverage. Like, I definitely have some discoloration under my eyes, some darkness that lots of concealers do not fully cover. Really the only one that fully covers it is my Huda, and even then you can kind of just see the tiniest little bit poking through, but this one is definitely giving me plenty of coverage of those dark circles. They're just the hair, so it's definitely, in my opinion, a full coverage concealer. So here's a real close up on those under eyes. As I said, you can see the tiniest bit like of darkness poking through here, which is pretty much as good as it generally gets with concealer for my under eyes. Yeah, I'd say that's covered it as well as any other concealer that I have. It's like I haven't set it yet and it's really not creasing terribly. Like, I feel like if we pat this out and set it, it's gonna do really well with my fine lines. Let's do that quickly. So I'm gonna use my Jeffree setting powder. This is one of my Refa brushes. Just setting that down, and I'm gonna set all the other places where I applied that concealer. So chin, down the bridge of my nose, just between my brows there, and around my schnoz, just when I get a little oily on my nose. So I have normal skin, pretty much, with like an oily, basically an oily nose. It gets slightly oily in the T-zone, basically, but mainly it's my nose that's the issue. So yeah, I'm not going to set the rest of my face with powder. I'm not going to use a setting spray or anything else that might change how the foundation performs. I just want to see how the foundation does and not help it out in any other way. Wow, I'm really impressed with that concealer actually. So I've set it down now. Obviously powder on the under eyes is not the most flattering if you're like over 30, but it has set that down. It's not creasing as yet. We'll obviously give it a minute. But yeah, at the moment it's looking really good. It's got great coverage, definitely a full coverage concealer. The foundation is looking like the most lovely natural glow without being oily or wet. It looks very similar to the finish of my Radiance foundation. It's looking mega smooth. Forehead looks good. As I said, it didn't fully cover my melasma, but as far as the lines and everything, there's no creasing. My problem area of my chin is looking really good, smooth, plumped. A fantastic start. So I'm going to finish the rest of my makeup now. I will have some breakfast and then I'm going to come back and see how everything is dried down and how everything went on top of the foundation. Back in a few. Okay, so we're back. So the time is just coming up to 10 o'clock. So I reckon I finished putting this foundation on about an hour ago. So we're at the hour mark. So we can see how the foundation has kind of set down. It is definitely staying tacky. Maybe over the next little while it will dry down a bit more, but at the moment it is still very much tacky, so it is not going to be transfer free, but it doesn't claim to be. It is a luminous foundation, so you wouldn't really expect that. At the moment it's looking beautifully smooth. It's not exaggerating lines or texture. In fact, it is smoothing and blurring my skin. It looks very flattering on lines and texture. My skin looks plumped, smooth, youthful. By the way, this is making my blush look really, really extreme. It doesn't look that extreme in person, I promise you. Everything looks brighter on the camera. But yeah, at the moment, I'm really happy with it. Although it stayed tacky, everything went on top of it beautifully. You guys know I never set my foundation down with powder, especially not if I'm doing a review, but I don't really do it in my everyday life. So I'll just bronze like with a stippling motion to start with. Once I've got some powder down, then I'll buff. Nothing moved, nothing was an issue. Everything's went lovely on top. Everything's complemented it beautifully. I'm really happy to say the concealer, I mean, there's barely any creasing at all. If I stretch my eyes out so that you can see, there's barely anything at all as far as creasing. Obviously I set with powder, you can see there's a small bit still poking through. Definitely a solid full coverage concealer and really little to no creasing, even though I am 35 years of age. Chin area looks great, between my brows, all the problem areas like around my nose. Even my smile lines, like it's barely sunk in, the tiniest little bit in my smile lines. I mean, that is impressive. Like my top lip is sweating, it's already flipping humid here. So we're going to call the start of the wear test 9 AM, so that's like just coming up to an hour ago now. I'm so far really impressed. I took a flash photo and it looked fantastic. There's no SPF in here, so you wouldn't necessarily expect a flashback or bounce back, but sometimes it does happen anyway. But I think it looks beautiful so far. Definitely a fantastic answer to the higher end glowy luminous hydrating foundations so far. It does feel lightweight. I can feel like I'm wearing foundation. It doesn't feel like nothing, but it definitely feels lightweight and it feels hydrating. Like my skin feels hydrated right now. It feels good. So I think so far for dry skins, this is going to be a win. And actually, as long as it wears well on me with my normal skin, it's not so dewy and glowy that I would say if you're oily it's a definite pass. Let's just see how it wears, see if it gets much more glowy during the day before we pass judgment. But my goodness, so far I am impressed, as always pretty much with Makeup Revolution products. So I will see you in a minimum of 8 hours time. So we're back and it has just gone 6 PM. Hopefully you can see that on my phone. So it's been about 8 hours, just over 8 hours since I left you, and more like 9 since I put this foundation on my face. I mean, look at the state of my hair. So yeah, it's been a long day, a tiring day, but I wouldn't say I've given this foundation like the toughest challenge ever. It's been a pretty standard day. It's very wet and muggy here today, lots of rain, but I have mostly been indoors with like running to and from cars. We've been running errands, and then I spent most of the day with my best friend and her family, her little baby. So there has been like lots of face contact, children's games, playing, etc. But it could certainly have had tougher conditions, and unfortunately it has not worn the best at all, and I will show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about the foundation first and then we'll get on to the concealer. Now the first thing you'll notice is that I am very, very shiny, like too shiny, definitely not a sort of glowy luminosity. It's definitely a oil slicky down my nose, all around my nose, my chin and on my forehead. So all the areas where you would typically expect to get oily first. I am very shiny, like extremely shiny. That on its own wouldn't be a huge fail for me because it has been 9 hours, you know, so if you had drier skin then that wouldn't, you know, necessarily happen to you. And also I did not set the rest of my face with powder. I did set this area around here, my nose and my chin with powder, but obviously you could set your forehead and that might help a little bit. But you will also probably be able to see that the foundation has almost gone from my chin. It's definitely worn from like this area. It never dried down, it stayed pretty tacky, so it's definitely one that you're going to notice transfer on anything that touches your face. The biggest concern, and I'm going to show you as well as I can, is this area. So when I first applied this foundation, it didn't soak into my smile lines, but as I've worn it, as the time has gone on, it has really badly soaked into every line in this area. So it is really exaggerating all of the lines on my top lip, and especially my smile lines here. Like not just, you know, one, but every line along here and around my nose. It is like soaking in there and aging me. As far as the concealer, again, it's probably worn better than the foundation, but obviously this area was set, but it's definitely a bit aging on me. It's creased a little as the day has gone on. I'll stretch my eyes out again for you to see. Definitely not the worst I've tried, but it is aging and it is emphasizing like every little line under here, and I've definitely got concealers that look better in that area. I like the coverage, but yeah, for me this like adding lines and aging me is a absolutely not, no thank you. No thank you. So there are definitely lots of pros about this foundation and this concealer. Lots going for both of them. Great coverage, not having to use a lot of product, an incredibly good price point. Love the packaging actually. Everything applied really beautifully and blended out really easily. It photographs well. Yeah, lots and lots of pros. But the big con for both of these products for me is that they are like unkind, shall we say, on lines and wrinkles. So for mature skin, if you're over 30, I think they're probably going to have the same impact on you. As far as it being too shiny, if you have drier skin or if you set with powder, you know, heavily all over your face, especially in the T-zone, if you have oily skin, that might not be an issue for you. That just all depends on your skin type and your preference. If you mind having to set a foundation with powder, I do, because I just don't ever really like setting with powder. I don't want to. I don't want extra product. I don't want extra powder on my face. But if you don't mind that, that might resolve that issue for you. You can also touch up and things like that. So for me, the main problem with this foundation and the concealer is that it's emphasizing my lines more than I would want it to. But I mean, that is one fairly minor crime, to be honest, at this price for these products. I still think they are really, really worth the money if you are a bit younger than me, or if you have drier skin, then I think, or both, drier skin and younger than me, then you may have hit the jackpot. So I would love to know if you have tried either of these products, how you got on. Let us know in the comment section how you got on. If you have a different skin type than I do. Hello? Literally the door just opened and I thought it was my child and no one's there. Yeah, let us know in the comments what your skin type is if you've tried this and how it wore on you and how it did on you, because obviously everybody's different, so everyone gets kind of a different experience. But yeah, for me, it looks beautiful on the majority of my face. It is very smooth, really nice and glowy. T-zone, it is gone to an oil slick, and in my lines, it is not my friend. I hope you found this review helpful and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.